enemy of knowing.
CRROW!
All right, and we are live. CRROW, take it away. CRROW, where did you go?
Jason, I've got music blaring in my ears.
Nothing on my end. Chat room,
right.
What are you getting?
There it went. I don't know. It was super loud. It was awesome.
That's very odd. Are you sure you don't have a window open and the volume playing? You might be getting kickback.
Oh, hold on here. Let me.
Well, anyway, folks, while CRROW figures that out, hello, welcome to an impromptu live stream. CRROW and I are going to take a few moments to address the very sad situation that went on today and how, well, just everything that went around with all of that. So,
Jason, hang up on me with Skype and reestablish. Everything's doubled.
Okay. Hang tight, everybody. Technical difficulties, please stand by. All right, everybody's saying they can hear clearly. See if you have a YouTube window open by mistake.
No, I'm killing everything.
All right, everyone's saying that everything's fine, that you're coming in clear.
All right, I hear everything. Everything's doubled, Jason. The whole conversation just keeps coming back. I've killed everything.
Huh.
All right, it sounded like something just shut down. We good?
I mean, we should be.
All right, hold on. Let me see if I can get the chat window up. All right, everything sounds good. Sorry about that. Can everyone hear me in the chat? I don't see anybody responding. Okay, here we go. All right, well, let's start over. All right, man. Welcome to the live stream. First of all, let me say we're very sad to see what happened today. Terrible. It makes me wonder how much of this could have been avoided, but that's not really the point. We wish Lotus all the best, but it doesn't look like things are going well. But we needed to point out how this all went down so people understand. I wanted to pull down the episode 3 days ago, but I realized there would be an outcry if I did that. So let me just start by explaining how this happened. We met with Lotus and we had a pre-talk and we realized there's a lot here. A lot of it is very interesting and people will be interested. So we outlined what we wanted to talk about to record the next day. And this is what happened. We met, we got ready to record, and the main thing we wanted to outline was, of the crowns of the world, which ones are the highest, which ones are the false crowns. That was the main idea. And we agreed at the outset that we would stop at each point so we could vet out, ask questions, and dig into, the way we typically do, each set of ideas, which we knew were going to be way beyond what most people had heard. As we got into the recording, that's not the way it went. It became a steam engine on the track, and there was no way to get a word in edgewise. When it was all said and done with the recording, I sat there with Jason. I said, man, some of that is such probably important information, and so much of it we can't possibly vet. There's no way to do it. And so I said, I vote we run it. And Jason says, I vote we run it. So that's what we did. The first day I put it up on the site in the typical way we do. And by the way, before we recorded with Lotus, we said this won't run on YouTube or we'll get censored. So we'll put a bumper up. We'll run hour one, and the second one will be for membership only. And she knew it. And so what happened is I put it up, and all of a sudden, the first day that the episode is out, I get this legal threatening email from Lotus, all kinds of legal language in it, how she owns her voice and she didn't understand how it was going to be run and she wasn't happy about it, and all these legal undertones. I wasn't happy to hear it. I knew we'd explained it, but you know, I'm a reasonable guy. If that's going to upset you, I said fine. But then this is what happened. So I took the whole episode, put it up on my server on the free side of things, and then traffic spiked through the roof. Meanwhile, Lotus goes over to the site, downloads the full show, and puts it up on YouTube. So I write her and say, please don't do that, Lotus. We're trying to avoid being associated and censored endlessly. Meanwhile, look what's happened. The whole channel's been eliminated. She ripped the entire show from CRROW777 Radio, so Google is well aware that I was there on a site they've demolished, so it remains to be seen how much ends up bouncing off on us in terms of censorship, but that's not really the point. I tried to describe why we do things like we did, told her how my site had been deleted in 2017 and how much censorship we've dealt with ever since, and she was unconcerned about it. So whatever, I decided I'll live with that too, and she did what she wanted. Meanwhile, the traffic goes off the damn charts because now the episode has been moved over onto the free side of the house and the whole world starts hitting my server. So the way I have this set up, I have to do things to protect from server crashes, and my bandwidth, probably 5 times the bandwidth. So my price for running this episode, which I can't serve in my normal way to offset cost, is going through the roof. My server actually crashes, I think, once or twice during the course of this. So anyhow, we get through all this, and I figured, okay, now the traffic will mellow out. Maybe everything will be fine. And then, of course, this morning I start getting emails that hell has been cut loose in a handbasket. I go over as many did to look at the live stream, and I said, holy smokes, this is going so south so quick. And I started getting worried that someone was going to get shot and killed. Then there were reports that someone did get shot. And of course, everybody knows the news never tells the truth, so it's not easy to understand what really happened. At the end of the day, with everything that happened, I knew that server traffic was going to go off the charts again because there were memes now saying, go see episode 233. And I can't afford it. I can't have that much traffic coming to my site for free. The problem was, to run it, I had to put it on the free side of the house because Lotus had legally threatened me, basically. And so there's the whole story. Anyhow, I'll pay attention to the comments now. Is there anything I dropped there, Jason?
No, that sounds about right. She didn't kill 2 police officers, just to be clear here. She shot at 2 police officers. They were hit in the leg. The tourniquets were applied on the scene, and they got to the hospital. They're fine.
Which is the media side of things, right, Jason? We don't have anything other than media confirming that truly happened.
Right. But I just saw somebody type in the chat room that she killed 2 police officers. According to the mainstream report, no, she didn't kill anyone. The way I understood it went down is that they were 2 deputies were coming with a warrant for a mental health check. The warrant was to take her to give her a mental health evaluation. And when she addressed the deputies, she opened fire. And from what I understand, that is it. She hit them in the leg, from what I got from the mainstream reports. And that's what started the whole standoff thing. And then she ended up in her basement with a gas mask. And I'm assuming at that point they were throwing tear canisters in.
It
turned into a nightmare scenario.
It was a nightmare. And here's the problem. I saw early on in the chat and her live stream that people said 2 people had been shot outside, but I never saw anything to confirm or disconfirm. But that's another problem for me. If that did in fact happen, I'm not down with that. When these simple rules under a godly existence, one of them is do not kill. In other words, you don't use lethal force unless it's all or nothing, unless you're protecting your family or your own life. So there's other parts of this, but the problem is I don't know for sure. I know what the media is saying, but I also know that there's no good reason to trust the media. And I'm also further worried that now that I'm hearing it was a mental health checkup, that's unfortunate too, because people who are labeled as crazy typically lose all their damn rights. So there is nothing about this that isn't tragic and sad. And I just wonder, could so much of this been avoided, or did it all just go off the rails? I don't know. But I wanted people to know why I pulled 233. It is the only episode I've ever pulled. And unfortunately, from the legal threats, it was, you run this on the free side or else I'll start filing legal papers against you because I own my own voice. And I tried to reason. I said, we explained how this works. So I said, okay, fine. If it'll make you happy, we'll do this. But I am telling you, we saw traffic like I've never seen as soon as a full 2-hour show went over to the free side of the house, and I can't sustain it. I can't pay for it, and I can't keep the server running. It's just too much. So that's how it happened, all of it. And it's all very unfortunate. So again, now I'll shut up. I'll look at the chat room. I'll scan back to see if people were saying things that I missed during the course of it. Did I miss anything, Jason? Were you watching?
I'm trying to watch here, yeah. So,
Okay.
yes, indeed, if anybody got here late, we are addressing the Lotus situation. She did have a standoff with police today. Everything I saw was she was taken into custody. She was not killed, which I'm kind of surprised because a lot of times when police get injured or, God forbid, killed, they go a little cuckoo. And that didn't happen, so apparently she was taken into custody without anything detrimental happening to her. So that's it. That's the whole scenario.
So you got to look at the situation here realistically. This is so much of what we cover on the show. Should someone have the authority to come do a mental health check? Did this really all start with a mask? So there's one side of a system that is just making everybody so upset. But on the other side of it, do you suppose those deputies coming to the door, or whoever they were, had children? Do you suppose they thought they were doing an evil thing, or do you suppose they thought they were doing their job? And it doesn't excuse any of the system around it. My point is could this have been avoided? And I will never know the answer to these questions. But this is the whole thing, man. If someone sat back and saw everything that was going on, could they have figured out a way to make it not come to this? I mean, I saw dogs stuck in a room with tear gas. I saw windows getting broken out. I saw an adult female choking because she couldn't breathe. It's horrid. And so you got to see where we're all coming from here. And again, I wish nothing but the best for her. I'm terribly concerned that bad things are going to come of this all the way around, particularly if it is accurately being depicted that someone was injured with gunfire. That's going to be hell to pay. But I want everyone to understand, I did not pull down this episode lightly, but I was treated unfairly from the get-go, and I couldn't get a word in edgewise. And I'm an adult human being, so what I usually do is I say, even if I don't like this thing I'm doing, will it keep the peace? Because that's usually the most important thing. And so when I rolled it over onto the free side, I can't even tell you. I had hundreds of people live streaming on my server at once. And at one point, probably 5 times the traffic I ever did. So meanwhile, my caching system and everything else is running bandwidth at, I'm just getting a bill. All because she changed her mind, legally threatened me, and then turns around and downloads it all and puts it on YouTube when we explain the reason we do it like this is because we get censored. So now her channel's been terminated, and that content from my site was there. So what do you suppose Google's doing with their flashlight right now? Probably pointing it at the site that took me since 2013 to build. And there's no reason you see, this is what I'm saying. If 2 adults would have had the conversation and been cool to each other, none of these problems from my end would have existed. It doesn't undo anything that's done, but I want everyone to know I did not take it lightly to remove that content. Even more so because I know it's the only place the content is running. So I'm sorry for it, but there's how it went down, and there's how I arrived where I have to be. See, after everything that went down on the live stream, do you suppose there's going to be a few thousand people that are now going to come pummel my server because everything's been pulled over to public access? And if that's what happened, not only would it likely crash me, I can't afford that kind of bandwidth. I'm serving all my own content. So what do you want to get in, Jason?
Right. Now, it was definitely controversial. Even when CRROW and I got off Skype with her, we were both kind of like, wow. And I was like, that was kind of manic. And CRROW and I are not slouches when it comes to this whole law thing either, so we did recognize that a lot of the information did sound quite valid. The problem was she was mixing it up with some stuff that CRROW and I absolutely do not agree with, and let's be very blunt here. CRROW and I do not think any president is saving you. Yep, absolutely.
Right, let's address that. So the day we did the recording, the whole world depended on Trump. The following day, Trump was a prisoner of the military-industrial complex. The following day, he was a pedophile. I kept getting email after emails, and it just came off as a bit manic. But when the recording was up, the tone of voice when we started to record was much different than the tone and the tenor by the time we got to the end of the second hour. It was almost like a locomotive on a track. I tried to use my crowbar to get a word in edgewise to clarify things. I couldn't. that the train would not slow down. So I don't know, man. Maybe the stars align and unfortunate things are going to happen. But just from the get-go, we had this all worked out, what we were going to cover. It all seemed very validatable and interesting, and it just went off the rails the moment we got into it. And now look what's happened. Just tragedy.
Right. And just to be very clear, neither Crow nor myself accept that presidents do anything other than are placed to do whatever it is their particular section of the plan, the overall plan by the controllers. We've talked about this many times. We point out all the time how you do not seat a president with the popular vote. The Electoral College does it, and that shows that the control system in place. So no, Crow and I never backed up the whole Trump is going to save us and all that stuff that people get to. And there's a second
Q
part
narrative.
To that.
Yeah, basically the Q narrative, right?
And then there's the second part of that where everybody, all these people that are just absolutely obsessed with Q, who is supposed to be, and I just think this is ludicrous beyond all belief, and I tell people this all the time, Q is supposed to be this figure, this individual, supposedly individual, near the president, and is getting information and leaking it out through QAnon, the hackers and all that. That's the way I generally take that, and I'm sorry, this is ridiculous. And the example I always use is when a new high-end movie is being made in Hollywood, they can track where scripts are so that one of the leading actors can't give it to somebody else to copy and get it leaked out. You think somebody, when you're talking about state secrets in the most powerful country in the world, that they can't figure out who that is? I mean, come on, that's just ludicrous on the surface of it. So that's that.
That sets aside the fact that I can tell you from firsthand knowledge that I'm just not allowed to talk about. It's a put-up. It is a put-up. I know firsthand, but that's all I can say about it. And you know, there's more to this problem. We had done episodes recently where we pointed out to start to understand many of the things we've just covered, this coming election or so-called election is going to be a big tell. If you get the same players, what has changed? Nothing has changed, right? So the idea that somehow these illegally seated people that have nothing to do with your vote, when you're convinced that you did vote them in when the Electoral College did it. And by the way, the High Court just put down new rules on the Electoral College saying you will never again go against your state as a representative. So these other inside views I have from time to time when I'm lucky and I wake up and someone wants to tell me something off the record is that look at all these things that are changing. Are we going back to some form of constitutional law? These are some of the ideas. The point being is if we come into this election and we get a Biden, then what has changed? If we get a Trump, then what has changed? Nothing has changed. And so then it becomes this occulted mind game. Well, what's really going on? Are they playing their Trump card and Biden their time? And it gets so exhausting to have to play this 7th grade language puzzle that goes on in our world. But the point is all the good information that appeared to come through the center of that was completely surrounded with things that I cannot support for a second. And so Jason brought it up. I guess there it is.
And she didn't trick us or fool us into anything. Her information when we had the pre-conversation with her sounded credible. She said a lot of things, and as I stated earlier, Crow and I do know a good bit about this law stuff, and she was saying a lot of things that were like, oh, okay, yeah, we understand that, and it sounded good. It changed quite a bit once we got on to the actual recording of the episode, and again, even though she made some claims there we didn't like, we don't necessarily agree with every guest every time 100%. I mean, that's ludicrous. Nobody does. But she said enough that we still felt there was good there. We just didn't realize that she was, to be blunt about it, she was unhinged, and that's just what happened. And here's us saying, "Hey guys, we're not perfect. We're discussing it. We're being as open and honest about it as we possibly can."
Well, there's also, part of what we really wanted to set out to do, which was a fascinating discussion, was the idea about the crowns. Like, how the Vatican has the double or the triple crown, and the highest crown, which I have researched before, is supposedly in Scotland. And the side crown or the lesser crown is what was adopted by the Vatican, showing the kind of fraud in all of it. These were some of the ideas we wanted to get to, and it's like we almost didn't touch them. As the conversation I mean, it was literally like putting a locomotive with a supercharger on it on a track. It got on the track and it just picked up speed and momentum as it ran along. The information barrage was like mind numbing, because there's a there to some of it, and then some of it you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't hold water. So after the fact, I email her before all the legal threats and everything happened, and I said, can you give me the court cases? Because of course smart followers were already asking, where's these court cases? So I posted them, and I took time to look up 2 or 3 of them, and yeah, they were filed, and yeah, it all looks legit. I mean, it's like with Cal Washington, someone's, oh, this guy claims they're in charge of the post office or the treasury. Maybe legally on paper, maybe that's true. I don't know. But I can tell you it all got filed. And so it just became one of those tangled spider webs where it became a catch-22. And then when the traffic hit, it was unsustainable. It became, I did this show that is now going to cost me a bunch of money and keep me up all night trying to make sure my server doesn't crash so the membership can actually go get content. And then meanwhile, all that content was ripped off my site without my permission because she owns her voice, and then put up freely on YouTube, which will connect my website with her, and that, what they did to her website. So you can see possibly what we're going to contend with now. And why? Why do we need to do any of that? There was no reason for any of that to happen. But
she made some very poor decisions. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
I don't know if an adult thinking rationally could have come up with a totally different outcome, but what's happened is freaking tragic, and I don't want to see anyone go through that. I hope she's okay. I hope people didn't get shot. If people got shot, then I am further away from that. I served in the Marine Corps. I was in law enforcement for a period of my life. I know what guns do, and anyone who would do that is clueless on a level that is inexcusable. You don't use lethal force ever unless you're going to die or you're protecting someone else's life. It's that simple. You don't do it to protect property. You don't know. None of that. That's not where I'm at. I'm all about the first law. Thou shalt not kill. That is my first law. But the whole thing went sideways, so I hope everyone understands. As we were getting ready to do this, I was still getting Twitter notifications. Hey, I'm a member. What the hell are you doing pulling down 233? So I hope people understand why I did what I did. And by the way, it was my decision entirely. I did it, and I'll take full responsibility for it.
And that's really it, folks. We just wanted to be honest and transparent, let you know what's going on. The whole situation is very sad. We, of course, feel bad for her. It's obvious she has some kind of issues, emotionally, mentally, whatever you want to say, and that's a terrible thing. And hopefully police didn't get shot up. It certainly looks like that's what happened. It's just all around a bad situation, and we're sorry to hear of it, and we just have to deal with it and keep moving forward. And we have an excellent law episode coming up for you guys, in fact, with Tom Barnett. That's going to be this Thursday.
Mind blower.
Yeah, it's fantastic. In fact, I was completely blown away with how well he put that together, and how level-headed and everything. It's just the antithesis of everything we just went through, so I think it's going to be great.
Let's try to draw a lesson from what's happened here. So if there's going to be a tragedy, maybe we can draw something positive to move forward with. All these things are going on in the world, and a lot of us don't like it and don't want to participate. But if it truly is true that a mask started all this, then let me ask the adult question here. Should you have just swallowed your pride and done it for that time to avoid all the bad blood that was about to occur, and then went back to your principles after the fact? Or was it important to stand your ground until your feet were bleeding? And this is not an easy thing to deal with. This is the catch-22 we're all going to face when you're asked to do things that are against your moral values and your principles. There's going to be a lot of that coming, at least through winter, I'm guessing, or part of the first front part of winter. And so what I do in life is I play like a chessboard. If I do this, what are the likely outcomes? If I do that, what are the likely outcomes? And I've gotten to a point, like when I put the whole show over on the free side of the server, I did not want to do that. And when I saw my content going up on YouTube, I could have copyright struck it and had it removed. But you see, I set it all aside, trying to work out what will cause the least amount of badness. And I don't know if it's true, but maybe if people would have done that before all this went down, it would have been a different outcome. I don't know for sure. It's almost impossible to get good information, because all we're getting is the media reports. And so there it all is. Does anyone want to ask anything before we wrap up? And by the way, Thursday's episode is fantastic. And actually, we went back again to record with Tom Barnett about the human consciousness lift. And not only that, we got a dude coming who has cured the chronic bee collapse or the hive collapse thing. Using shungite of all things. It's an amazing story. So we got a few things coming that are just going to be off the charts.
All right, so we'll give it a second here. I'll check both.
I'm looking.
Both the sides here, the D Live and the YouTubes. If anybody's got anything they want to ask before we sign off, this wasn't meant to be a big long anything. Just wanted to get some transparency and some honesty out there because that's just the way we roll.
Oh yeah, we got the Q&A in the bag. Do we know when we're running the Q&A, Jason? I'm looking.
Q&A, oh yeah, Tom Barnett will be our Thursday show, and then the about
Q&A
2/3, I would guess we'd say we got through, will be the Q&A. That'll be another full 2-hour show. That'll be the Saturday show, and then we still have some questions to get through.
Yeah, and by the way, one of the things that was very striking about the questions, I don't know, we've probably run 6, 7, 8, I don't even know how many Q&As. I think I did one Q&A before Jason came on. But if you look at the questions that were being thought about and asked way back then and compare them to now, you know what I notice? I see a lot of people who are not necessarily looking for a leader or a center to their circle anymore. They're more interested in teaching themselves and learning and using it more as an overall community where everyone's kind of on a level footing. And that's a heck of a thing. People should go back and look at the early Q&As and check out what people are thinking and asking, and then compare it to what we're going to run this Saturday. See any questions coming, Jason?
I don't yet. I'm trying to go back and forth between D Live and YouTube.
The other thing I would point out is in all these systems so many of us are upset about and so tired of, never forget that the person you're looking at is probably a low-level employee that is just trying to earn a living. Never forget that. That could be you or that could be me standing there saying, hey, man, put on a mask, not knowing any better or whatever. You just got to try to do the best you can, and you got to try to avoid ugliness.
And, we should probably take a moment to address that, and I'm going to keep on addressing it. There is a very easy way to get out of the mask thing, and I'm totally for fighting back against the mask thing. But all you've got to do is say, I have a medical condition, and I have not heard of anyone having a problem since then. Not to say that there aren't people having problems with it, but the couple of people who have decided to challenge me about why I'm not wearing a mask when I go somewhere, I've used that. They've left me alone right afterwards. So that is the best thing I can tell you right now, and I'm all for saying no to the mask, and man, I wish more people were doing it, to be honest with you.
I think Blix wants to say something.
Blix likes to talk on the radio.
Every time I sit down here, he has to come over and bark at least once. He gets his sock, his pull toy, and says, okay, you're on the air, let's play tug of war.
Crow, do you wear a mask if you need to get into a store or similar?
No, but I did have to go into a hospital once. I ended up having to wear it part-time, and then I had to go to the dentist twice. The first time, I opted to put it on for 10 minutes till I got in. The second time, I told them I didn't want to wear the mask, and I stood on the porch waiting for them to take me in. Of course, when you're in there, they don't make you wear a mask. But I've been very conscious about trying to seem like an adult and not a troublemaker, and that I'm just exercising a God-given right. So I'm very careful trying to figure out, what is that person seeing me doing? Do I look like a crazy person just causing trouble, or do I look like a reasonable person pointing out something that's realistic? But for the most part, no.
All I've done, and I go places on a regular basis, both with Rose and with my daughter, and we just act like nothing has changed. Every single person around us, for the most part, they're all wearing the stupid masks. We act like nothing's any different than it was a year ago. But I've had maybe 2 or 3 people in stores bring it up to me. I just say I have a medical condition. That's the end of it.
That's part of the problem. The story that I was told about all this that bothers me is that there was an arrest made over in a mask. Well, how can that be? There has to be a law, a statute, at least, for
No,
that
I
to
don't think
occur.
I don't think that's what it was. I think she didn't want to wear one at the hospital when she was there the day before, or something to that effect. I don't know the exact details, but the way I understood it was she was refusing to wear the mask, and I think that may have been what triggered the whole mental health thing. Because if she did anything in person like she did when she was with us, they probably did think she was manic, and that may have been what triggered all this. Now I'm speculating. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, see, Jason and I have done enough on law that you begin to like when you hear the Tom Barnett episode. Like if I walked up to anyone in the chat room right now, let's say 6 or 7 years ago, and I told you, did you know that there are two realms you can exist in this world when we're living? One realm is private and one realm is public. And did you further know that only one of those realms is for living men and women? The other one is for dead entities. I mean, if I would have told you that 6 or 7 years ago, you'd have thought this dude's like smoking some peyote that's way too strong. Most people would have no context to measure it, but you know something? We're going to run it tomorrow, and we know it's not wrong. So when we were listening to what she was laying down, we've covered enough law to understand, damn, not only is that fascinating, we know certainly there's a foundational truth there, but then it started going off the rails, and it was all about the only person in the world can save us is the president. Let's just chalk this whole thing up to some bad stars, man. There was a bad sign or something going on. And lastly, before we close, I'd like to wish the best. If people were shot, I would hope they heal readily and that they weren't damaged for life. And I would hope the best for Lotus too, and hope that her world isn't shattered or the person she lives with, all that. And truly the dogs too, man. There were dogs and they're getting pepper bombed. Let's just hope that everyone's able to recover from this and move on. But it's a lesson to all of us. When you're out there in the world in these crazy times, if you're not playing chess, you're not doing it right. You've got to think, if I do this, what's likely to happen here? What will be the repercussions? How many people will be affected? Is it worth it? Risk will reward. You can ask Jason. He gets sick of me saying risk reward. It's how I measure everything. Why even do a thing if there's no gain? But anyhow, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Nobody's prejudging her. If that seems to be a thing, I see folks talking about it in the chat room. No one's judging her.
Far from it.
We're trying to be super cool about it and deal with the negativities that she threw at us. I mean, you got to understand that she did some things that weren't cool.
We wouldn't have run it, Jason, if we were prejudging her. That's not what went on at all.
Yeah, we were cool about it by running it instead of just saying, yeah, throw that away. I'm not going to go there. Let's just move on. We didn't do that. We decided to give her the benefit of the doubt and be cool about it.
You know, you do the best you can. You try to be decent to people, even if you got to do things you don't dig all the time, which was a big part of this whole thing. And not only that, who knows what YouTube's going to do now? They just whacked that channel, and all that content, second-hour content, was pulled from my server and put on YouTube, so they've scanned every word. Yeah, there's a lot of things about this that are unsavory, but we're all adults here. Let's move on, and don't come around saying we're judging someone, because I don't judge anybody. And if you're saying that, you're not right. But anyhow, anything you want to add?
Well, we
Jason?
try to be as fair to everyone and everything as we possibly can, hence why we're here being super transparent and honest about things. I mean, we could just do what we want and move on, but we're not doing that, are we? We're here. We just took 30 minutes out of our time to try and be cool to everybody and be like, hey, this is what happened. This is where we're coming from, and we're trying to be as good about a very bad situation. It's a very sad situation. I mean, that's it. You know, we're not judging anybody.
If I was not sent the kind of legally threatening subtexted email that I had to run the entire 2 hours on the free portion of my server, that would still right now be running. Just to be clear, it wouldn't have been taken down, but I can't. She said she owns her voice, so if I take it down in one place, I have to take it down everywhere. I would have been fine with leaving it up. You know, YouTube already is going to do whatever the hell they're going to do, and the damage has been done elsewhere. But anyhow, that's it. Hopefully we can draw some silver lining from this dark cloud. What were you going to say, Jason?
Oh, that's it. Tomorrow, of course, we'll be here for the regular live stream that we do every Wednesday, and then Thursday, Tom Barnett. And that's going to do it.
Yeah, the Tom Barnett thing is fascinating, and he is one intelligent, well-spoken man, well-rounded, and both the episodes we just did are fantastic. So we've got some good stuff coming. By the way, the bees episode, I'm excited about the bees episode. Do you guys have any ideas how important bees are and how fascinating those little colonies? It's just, to me, it's all very fascinating. That how does nature make that, man? How does that work? How did that come to be? Who created all that? But we're going to talk to a beekeeper who's basically cured the collapse disease. So there it is, man. I hope you guys understand why I had to do what I had to do, and I'd like to wish you all a good night. Cheers.